Neil, thanks very much for joining
No worries,
us.
Owen. Glad to come in.
So the reason why I wanted to talk to you today is because we're talking about big stuff. Economy, where's the world at? How are we post-COVID? Where's the world going economically? But I want to get on the ground and find out what's going on for an individual. And you're our individual today, right? So I just want to understand where the world is at. How is it impacting you? Okay. Now, what I will say to you is, I don't know. We've never met before. I don't know much about you. But I'm not going to ask you to pull out your bank statements and start looking at them. But just give me an idea of your professional setup and your personal setup and where are you at in life.
Okay, so I work in tech.
Okay.
And I also have a side business. I do coaching.
Okay.
I came back to Ireland in 2017.
Where were you?
I was in Australia for 11 years.
Okay.
So I was pretty well set up, renting in Australia. Accent with my dad. Didn't see myself coming back here for a long period of time. Maybe 6 to 12 months max, back to Australia, see what happens. Got back to Ireland. Moved back into my parents' house. That was the plan for, like I said, for 6 months. And
sorry, did you say your dad had an accident?
my dad, he long story, but he essentially he was going in for a bypass.
Right.
It was delayed. He was taken in for a second time. It was delayed. That's what kept me kind of rolling at home.
Okay.
He didn't have the bypass. He's doing well. One thing led to another. And I just decided, okay, I'm going to give it a go here and see how things pan out.
So you were kind of brought back to help him through a medical situation, and you kind of kept dragging on, and you're finding here, you're 6 years later, and you're still here.
I was back with friends, family. My brother had a boy in 2017. My sister had a little boy. So I was kind of caught up back in the whole the scenario of family again. And I thought, do I really want to go back and spend a long time in Australia and miss out on all these small little things? So I just decided I would give it 2 years then. I signed up to do a master's.
Right.
I took my time looking for work, which probably wasn't the smartest idea because I was burning through money. I work in tech.
You're working for somebody else in tech, are you? You're an employee in a tech.
I'm a contractor. So I was working for myself. And the market here was quite good. Still is good, obviously. In 2017, I hung around for maybe 6 to 8 months, and then I took a job.
Okay.
And I had a plan in my head that I was going to be out of home within 12 months of that.
Okay.
And that all changed.
And you're 6 years in, you're still at home. And I'm going to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
To me, just before we jump on to where you're still at home, your coaching business, what type of coaching business? It looks like PT or something by the look of you, is it?
No, everybody assumes it's...
okay, fair enough.
It's behavioural change.
Wow.
So I did a master's in personal and management coaching. And I was against going into to work on staff and companies, and I just wanted to try and build up something from the ground for myself.
Right.
Just to have extra income in. It's a minefield. Well, it's not just it is a passion, but it's a tough business. There's a lot of coaches out there. It's an unregulated market. And you have to put a lot of time and a lot of work into marketing yourself. So a little part of me was struggling with that. I was holding down, like I said, a contracting job. I train a lot.
Okay.
So I was...
So the background there, if you paint a picture in my head, basically you were in Australia for 11 years, you went out there, you planned on coming home for a little while, but you stayed. When you came back, all of life and Irish, being in Ireland caught you in, and here you are 6 years later.
Yeah.
You are living at home. You're in your
I'm 35.
45, okay. So you're 45 years of age.
I'll take the compliment.
Yeah, okay. That's the PT stuff that's the same compliment I gave you a second ago with the PT thing. But you're 45 years of age, and yes, you've took a big stint out of your adult life and went off to Australia and came back again. So that's obviously going to change your life plan.
Absolutely.
Are you happy living at home? Do you want to be there? I'm sure you're happy there, but do you want to be there? Or would you prefer to be there?
Absolutely not. No, I don't want to be there. And there's certain, I mean, when you tell people this, you can see the dismay in their face, and they're like, what are you still doing at home? Probably detrimental to relationships.
Right. Yeah, sorry, can I ask, do you have a partner?
I'm single.
You're single, okay.
So I'm single, I've no kids, and that's probably made it completely easier.
Right.
So I'm a walking red flag in some ways, right? But at the same time, you have to give a context around that. I've been in this position twice before. So when I originally left and went to Australia, I basically landed in Australia after losing a large deposit for a house.
Okay.
And I had 750 something euro in my bank account in 2008. And I went to Australia and I built back up from scratch and I did really well. I came back to Ireland in 2017 and I made one or two mistakes in terms of I didn't see my long-term living arrangement being in Ireland. So my financial situation was pretty much tied up with a pension in Australia, and then you have the tax system, currency exchange. So I was essentially, when I came back here, I was starting from scratch again.
So financially, you were kind of living a hybrid life in terms of, you were kind of, am I still financially in Australia?
I've one leg here, one leg
where
there.
am I settled? And now you are settled back in Ireland. You're not going to Australia now at this stage, are you?
Well, again, that's part...
You don't know?
Well, when you look at I know you were talking to Jim earlier, but when you look at the bigger financial picture here, I still don't know. Is buying here at this time is probably a little bit out of my reach in terms of for what I want. The rental market is so crazy. There's no solid foundation for people who are renting in the market.
So you're at home, and again, we're not going to go into the specifics, but are you in a position if you needed to put a deposit down on something you wanted to? Could you? You are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, and I kind of feel I'm aware that you're going to have people listening who have gone home out of necessity. That's what I was trying to explain. I have been in that position where I was at home out of necessity. I felt the first 2 years that I was back here, I had no choice, or else I could go back into shared living.
Yeah.
Which I find is pretty taxing on your mental health. Yeah. So it's difficult. So I also lived on my own in Australia for 2 years. So I was kind of up and down. I was like, should I live on my own? Should I move in? I had friends who had offered me accommodation arrangements, good arrangements.
And sorry, just because the listener's going to be listening to this and they're going to be thinking to themselves, so this guy has a good job, he has some savings behind him, but the word you used for a minute ago is I can't buy what I want to buy. Are your expectations too high of what you want to buy? And I'm trying to be hard on you on purpose.
No, I'm happy. Yes and no. Like, I mean, you're going out into a market at the moment and you're competing with cash buyers. And this is on apartments, houses. It's across the board. Like it's very subjective. I know.
I do think we need to demystify that cash buyer thing. Like if you're a seller, right, and you have a cash buyer versus someone who's mortgage approved with the deposit, right? Provided the person who's mortgage approved with the deposit doesn't have a chain. Like if you're not in a house and you have to sell your house to buy this next house, right? You're more or less just as attractive as the cash buyer.
Absolutely.
Okay? The difference with the cash buyer is if I'm a seller and I have a cash buyer and I have a mortgage approved buyer, I know the mortgage approved buyer has a limit, whereas the cash buyer may not have the limit, and that's where they're driving up cost. But some people think they get into a bidding war with a cash buyer and they think, oh, I'm done for. You do need to, and I'm not saying this specifically to you, I'm more saying it in general, you do need to sell yourself as a first-time buyer to a potential seller.
Yes.
I'm not in a chain. I don't have to sell something to get into your house. I'm ready to go when you're ready to go.
Yes.
I'm ready to wait if you need me to wait, but let's get the deal done today. Yeah. And it is frustrating for people coming up against cash buyers. But sorry, to come back to your specific story, what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you is you are in a position, but you are finding it difficult to find something that would be attractive for you to make the leap. Yeah. Is there any part of you is kind of going, I'm not making the leap because I might go back to Australia though?
I've had to think long and hard about that. Sometimes
is life better out there?
Absolutely.
Is it?
It's not. Well, if you look at it in terms of housing, you're getting more bang for your buck. If you think about, like, in this country at the moment, like, our housing issue is systemic. It's not just about supply and demand. There's other it's amenities. I think I heard Jim saying earlier, we've the largest population we've ever had. We've more people coming in, and I'm not anti-immigrant whatsoever.
Yeah,
I was an immigrant for 11 years. I think they add amazing value to our culture. They bring their own culture. But at the same time, you can only put so much water in the cup, and if you keep filling it up, it's going to overflow eventually. And to me, unless we do something in the bigger picture, going abroad is always going to be an option, yeah.
Have you ever tried to get mortgage approval?
Yes.
How did that go?
I got mortgage approval twice. I've had mortgage approval twice.
Okay.
But it was the first time I was wasting my time. I'm on my own. I'm a single buyer. I understand now why there's more of an advantage for people who are buying with somebody else.
Yeah.
And the second part of the equation for me has been, if I give up that deposit, I've no financial security going forward. The deposit's gone. And also, when you buy anything in life, there's an exchange between your time and your energy for the value of whatever you're purchasing. And to me, if I have to buy something that's even a little bit out of my reach, I'm going to lose out in my mental wellness. I'm not going to be able to do the things that I like doing as well.
What about going further out? Like, I assume you want to buy in Dublin, do you?
Yeah.
Would you consider buying further out?
I used to think that was a no-go, but as you get a little bit out, I mean, everybody's going to, you're someone in their 30s is going to have different values to someone in their 40s. So getting out with the lads or doing certain things is not as important as it used to be. But there's also, I see my sister did this a couple of years ago and she moved further out and she was struggling with the transport in and out of work, coming to see family. So I don't really know. I think it's a really unfair argument put on people sometimes. Yeah. Should you sell your own beliefs just because you want to buy somewhere?
Is there any chance, again, let's be hard on you, right? Is there any chance that people generally move away from pain, right? And you kind of go, this is too painful for, I'm going to move towards this. So if you were in shared accommodation right now and someone said you can get your own place but it's going to be a little further out, would you take it? And I suppose, let me be more direct with the question. Do you have it too good at home?
I have an unusual situation at home in that I think, first of all, we get on quite well and I'm not home an awful lot. Or I certainly wasn't before COVID. Hybrid working is probably maybe upped the pressure at home a little bit. It's probably it's the answer. Yeah, okay. Because shared accommodation comes with the added pressure of having to facilitate and not be. You have to allow for other people's personalities. You can't just say what you want all the time.
Yeah. But I suppose what I'm looking at there is that there's not enough pain at home to encourage you to take some of the hits that might be to buy your own home that might be smaller than you expected or that mightn't be in the perfect location that expected.
Yeah.
And therefore you haven't just taken that leap yet because you've been mortgage approved, you have the deposit, and it's really what you're restricted by here is what you want it to look like. In terms of, I want to live there and I want to live in that type of house. And I know you haven't given us any specifics, but that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a question in my head is, if it's all right at home, why would you? But can I come back to the societal thing of, you mentioned a few minutes ago, it's not great, like there's lots of red flags there. You're 45, no kids and you're living at home.
My sex life is taken in like a nosedive.
Okay. And it's interesting, when you said that a minute ago, I saw a meme this morning that was first date questions. She says, and this is what the meme says, so don't give out to me for saying she said this. He might have said it either, right? But she says, you're 45, you've no kids and you're living at home, what's wrong with you? And he replies, you're on this date too, love.
Honestly, genuinely, like I'm pretty open about that I live at home. I don't hide it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed by it, but it's like sometimes you wince when you can see the look on someone's face as soon as you tell them. But at the same time, I always feel the person on the other side, if they're in a good place, they're genuinely not too bothered about it. I found it's the people who are maybe in a little bit of flux. Yeah. They're the people who tend to go, do you know what, you're not for me. And that's fine. Everybody's different.
Yeah. But do you think there's any part of you holding off to say, I want to see where my love life goes before I buy?
Lately, a little bit, yeah. Right. Yeah, because I've thought it's probably easier to buy with somebody. I'm not holding out for it, and I have the fallback can I go back to Australia? Or I'm open to going somewhere else if that's the case.
Is that attractive? Other than Australia, is it attractive just say, let's get out of here and live in a city centre somewhere and be able to afford it without compromising on some of your beliefs, as you put it?
In some ways, yes. Yeah, I just think it's difficult. You have to weigh up the pros and cons. Yeah. There's no easy answer to that. You could go away and it could backfire, and I could be like, why did I do that?
Yeah. You also seem to have a kind of a connection to your savings, that you're worried that this is your one shot, and if it's gone, and I get it wrong, and I just worry, is that holding you back too?
Possibly, yeah. And like, look, in 2007, I had a substantial deposit saved. I was after spending 3-4 years working every hour God sent, saving everything I had. And I had an idea in my head of what I wanted. I was a little shy of the deposit, and I made a ridiculous. I lost the whole thing.
Could you mind me telling you how? Gambling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you gamble in the whole that's a completely different. But was it an addiction?
No. It was an 8-month period of madness, but at the same time,
Neil,
I learned. I lost 35,000 in 3 weeks.
What type of gambling were you doing? What were you betting on?
I was in a casino. Ridiculous. But I'll say this, I had a couple of months of where it was amazing, where I was earning more in the casino than I was in my job.
Right.
And the savings were going up, up, up and up. I'd taken 3 or 4 holidays. I'd gone to New York. I'd gone on a skiing holiday. I bought my parents' TV. Little things, small things, but it kind of gave me this rush. It was like a lease of life.
And over that 8 months, did you start gambling and finish gambling all in the same 8 months?
All done. Up, down, done. I was like, I'm probably oversimplifying it, but at the end of it, I was a complete wreck. I was an emotional wreck. It has sat with me for a long time. The main reason it sat with me is because I've watched my dad work hard for his whole life. My dad's put a roof, he bought his house, he's fed, clothed, and put all his kids through education, and he's done it through hard work and graft.
Do you know what? That element of your story and that big part of your story changes my perception quite a bit, because you built up that money, you then, I'm going to say, you lost it all very quickly. That must have been incredibly painful. It sent you across the other side of the world for 11 years by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
You've come back, you've built up savings again. I'm not surprised you have an emotional attachment to that money now.
Yeah. But and that's why I said, that's why I feel like that's why I don't have the embarrassment around living at home. And also I think people can judge you very quickly without context to your story. I'm not here for sympathy, or I made a stupid mistake.
Yeah. You don't gamble now?
No,
you haven't in years.
I was in the casino once or twice with friends in Las Vegas, and I felt like I wanted to test myself, just to see. But I'm also really thankful and I'm grateful on some level that it happened, because when you look at the timing of it, this was the first time I'd ever discussed buying a house. I think I was like 26 at the time, and I asked my parents to go guarantor on the loan. And it was just before everything kicked off in 2000. I'd have financially destroyed them myself. So in some ways, I feel like there was a lesson. I know losing that amount of money is not great. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel in long term, the bigger picture was I saved myself a lot of hassle. And there was a lot of growth and self-development. It's probably why I got into the coaching. I wanted to understand where I was and what I was doing. I genuinely did. I landed in Sydney, Australia with 750 something in my bank account. I'll never forget it. I didn't ask for a loan. I used a credit card. I got a job within about 10 days, and through 2 or 3 really good friends, they put me up, they helped me out. And
wow. Kind of changes the perspective. You're right. And you know what? I'm not saying I judge you. I'm not dating you, right? But I'm not saying I judge.
Suggestion.
Okay.
You want to buy a house?
But it does change the perspective on it, because you know what it sounds like? A really horrible thing that you went through, but you've really learned from it, and you've really changed your life as a result of it. And yes, you went off to the other side of the world and you came back for family reasons. but I do think it's still holding you back. And don't let that bad thing continue to hold you back is the only thing I can say to you. You kind of have to release that emotional connection with that money.
Yeah.
Like,
don't get me wrong, it's not a massive amount of money, but it's
enough for a deposit.
It's enough for a deposit.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, I lived away from home for 11 years and I look at the rental market here now. I certainly don't want to rent here. I'd rather put what I hand up at home and into my parents' pocket than a stranger's pocket.
Okay.
I look at some of the places here to rent. They're not fit for purpose.
Yeah.
You look at some people, they're renting out like rooms and shared accommodation, and it's they're just being opportunistic because of the situation in this country.
Yeah. It's funny because when we were kind of putting the show together today and we're saying, yeah, what we really want to get is we want to get someone who's at home in a good job. You were perfect on paper in terms of at home in a good job, mid-40s, and you know what? I was expecting a big row. Isn't it terrible what society has done? But it's actually not. It's more a circumstance for you, and you want to get the right fit and you want to do the right thing and get it right.
Don't get me wrong. I came in here with the intention to vent today.
Yeah.
But you have to take some account. I'm in where I am because of me. It's not because of society. It's not because of the government. It's not because of public policies. I've made certain choices, and it has come at a cost. It's come at a cost. Personal relation, like as in like a partner, maybe. I mean,
yeah, but does it cost you the wrong partner? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I really believe what you're saying there is the truth. The right person will understand. I've been in 2 semi-serious relationships since I come back. One person was dead against me living at home, and the last person had a really good job, owned her own property, no mortgage, and had just. There was no judgment in terms of me living at home, and she almost understood it. And I'm not the type of person who's looking to live off somebody else. And I've had loads of opportunities to go in with someone else.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting, but I do think you probably dodged a few bullets. And it sounds like the second one actually understood it. She didn't nearly understood it. She did understand.
And she appreciated. I'm assuming the values I have around family. It's not like I'm impeding on anybody. To be honest, my biggest genuine concern in all of this is that my parents probably get more grief about me living at home than I do.
Isn't that mad? Isn't it?
Crazy. It's and I really feel for my mum because she comes from a big family, and they're all like, "Oh, your adult son still lives at home, and kick him out, get rid of him, and what?" And he's like, "Why is he living at home?" And I say to her, "Look, 2 things. One, living on my own really doesn't appeal to me. It genuinely doesn't. That's a big part of it. And number 2 is, forgot my train of thought there.
Your mother getting hard time. Over.
She gets the hard time. And I'm like, why do they care? The biggest thing for me in life is, how do you feel when you sit at home on your own? And I've really focused on creating a mindset to not cut out all the noise and all the distraction and focus on what I'm trying to get in life and not worry about everybody else's. And you can't control other people's opinions. And I'm not in other people's situation. But I do get, someone's going to listen today and go, Jesus, that bloke's an idiot. What's going on? Like should be doing X, Y, and Z.
Some people might listen to that. You know what? Let them. I always believe when I'm just standing up to do public speaking, if I'm going on the radio, if I'm doing something, a third of the audience are going to love you.
Yeah.
A third of them are going to hate you.
Yeah.
And a third of them haven't made up their mind yet.
Yeah.
And you go after is the wrong word, but if you convert the third who haven't made up their mind yet, well then you've come across okay.
Yeah.
And the lovers are always going to love you, the haters are always going to hate
True.
you. And it's the other third that you're actually being judged on, is the way I would put it, right?
Yeah.
And what I would say, there'll be some people who say that he's an idiot, but they were always going to say that no matter what came out of your mouth.
Yeah.
There's also probably, we'll stick your Instagram up here and you probably have a few people sliding into your DMs as well. You'd be grand.
Okay.
Okay, right. Let's bring it back around. So what we are hearing from you is you don't really think, like, it's kind of your life choices have brought to where you are. Yes, it would be easier if house prices were cheaper. Of course it would.
Yeah.
If I can give you a bit of advice, just listening to your story.
Are you going to give me free financial advice?
Free financial advice is what I'm going to give you, right? If I give you a bit of advice, and I know you've been mortgage approved twice before, and I don't know why it fell through. You're not mortgage approved right now, are you?
No.
I'd recommend you go off and get mortgage approved. See how much you can actually get and just play with daft the same way you might play with Tinder on a night.
Okay.
And just see if anything
3 hours in bed every night.
Just see how something might just click with you and say, you know, and I think looking at daft or My Home, I don't want to promote either of them, right? But looking at daft or My Home without mortgage approval is different to looking at.
Okay. It focuses your attention.
Yeah, focus, because now you know what you're looking for.
Crazy things.
Yeah, and sorry, and one of the things is once you know my limit is here, you don't look at the stuff above that because you're only just teasing yourself, right? It's pointless, right? If I can give you the analogy, looking at daft and my home without mortgage approval is a bit like looking at Tinder if you're in a relationship you're happy in.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Total sense.
Yeah. So there's excited was the wrong word.
I'm only joking.
But my point here is that, like, what are you doing on Tinder if you're in a good relationship?
I know.
You don't want any. You don't know. You don't want any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whereas without mortgage approval, you're looking at daft, and you're looking at daft things, literally, right? So go and get yourself mortgage approval. See what's in price range.
Yeah.
Put your area in, right? And say, right, there's my area. There's my price limit. And just keep an eye out because you mightn't buy today, you mightn't buy next year, but at least you've got a good idea of what's going on in the area that you want to live in.
Yeah.
And I don't know where property prices are going, right? Jim would suggest long-term, kind of 10-year term. He still thinks they're going to be going up because supply isn't there. But what I would say to you is that you are in a good position. Keep living your life. And as you say, when you're sitting at home on your own at night time, how are you feeling about yourself? And if you're feeling good about yourself, who cares what anyone else thinks?
Yeah. I appreciate that. Can I ask you one question?
Of course you can, yeah.
What's your take on investing versus purchasing real estate? So
this is a really interesting one for you in your circumstance. If you could say to me, I'm definitely not going to buy something in the next 5 years, I'd be saying to you, take your money that's sitting on deposit and stick it into a long-term investment. Okay? There are stats out there that will show you particularly if you strip the lending element out of it. So you think about it, if you buy a house for 100,000 euros, 10,000 euros of your own money and 90,000 euros of a loan, and that goes up, that property price goes up by 10%, it's gone up to 110 and you've doubled your 10 grand, right? Yeah. And those can skew all the numbers about saying, oh, property is great. Property with gearing the numbers can be very skewed. I would say to you, if you can make a longer term decision, a 5-year plus decision, leaving your money sitting in a bank account is not the best idea in the world at all. And in fairness, you've been back for 6 years. I don't know how long you've been building your deposit up over, but you would be much further ahead today if 5 years ago I had sat down with you and said, look, we know for a fact you're not going to buy in the next 5 years, so let's save in a different way. Yeah. But if you know what your ultimate decision is and you can put a 5-year time horizon on it, I'm going to put this money away for 5 years, well, then you need to do something else with the money.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.